So I had the great opportunity to be able to talk about Australian wheat breeding, and I actually went from the beginning of wheat breeding in Australia, talked about William Farrer, through to where we are now with private breeding and the impact that's had for Australian farmers. Look, it's so hard to say, what was the one thing that you learned from a conference that goes for 5 days, right? And the workshops added and all the rest of it and tours. It's been such a great time. But for me, the thing that I always get out of a conference like this is just all of the talented people coming together to share their ideas. So, not just one person, not just one idea, but all of those ideas going into the melting pot that we can then, try and digest from that, what are going to be the next technologies that we might adopt into breeding that would ultimately help Australian farmers and then humanity. Wheat production, look, I think it depends on where we are in the world in terms of what is the constraint, and there was a great conversation yesterday about that, the fact that it is quite different depending on where you are. And I think probably one of them is, for Australian farmers, is going to be dealing with the regulatory burden. So, as people are asking more about where their food comes from, and that's good, but perhaps people are struggling to understand that. We need to be able to navigate that in a way that makes sense so that we don't introduce into the world a food shortage. And so how do we make sure that Australian farmers are able to operate in a way that meets the social requirements of the world, meets the environmental demands that we need to have a sustainable farming system, but also increase production, because we don't want people to be hungrier in the future than they are now. And so I think the real challenge for Australian farmers is how do we continue to operate at a world-class level, meet the regulatory burden, but also continue to feed the world better than we have even in the past. So when you start out in your career, and I found this for myself, you sort of dive headlong into the topic that you know about. And then after 5 or 10 years, you might look up and then go, well, where am I now? How am I connected to the rest of agriculture? How is my work going to have impact? So I think to guard against that, my advice is talk to as many different people across as wide a scope of the industry as possible early in your career, and continue to talk to them, to constantly verify, is my work going to have impact? Because we're academically interested, we're scientists, we're really interested in what's going on, we're curious, that's the nature of who we are. But we also want to have impact, that I think people generally want to have impact on the world, a positive impact. So to have that, let's make sure that we're all talking to each other, learn as much from each other, and then really aim for the things that are going to have the best impact for the world in the future.